Hi, my name is Audrey Larson, and this is my Capstone project. For my Capstone project this year, I decided to address the process of getting your citizenship. And to fix this, I created a website. So this is just the link to my website. So my overall project goal was to provide people who are going through the citizenship process at local community organizations like Wallingford Adult Education and SCOW. I wanted to provide them with a website that allowed them to study on their own at home with ESL resources, civics resources, and information on filling out all the forms necessary to get your citizenship. So I decided to create a website as my method of helping people study and learn more about the topics that they need to learn about for achieving their citizenship. So how I became interested in this subject was personally, I believe that everyone should have an opportunity to become a citizen of the United States or a dual citizen if they want to. And I understand that it's a really difficult and long process, so I wanted to assist people who have to go through this and provide them with information in one consolidated place. And immigration rights is just something that I care about and like to read about in the news. So I was interested in creating my project on this topic. So my original plan was I wanted to sit in on classes at Wallingford Adult Ed, where they have some ESL classes and citizenship classes. I wanted to interview students in programs at Adult Ed, get some ESL and citizen and civics content together, and then I needed to understand citizenship process and create a website on Wix. All of my original plan came out in the end, and I got to complete everything except for the interviewing students in the programs at Adult Ed because I sat in on all of the classes in February and March, and then COVID hit, and a lot of the programming stopped and school stopped, so I didn't really get an opportunity to finish out that part of my project, but the rest of it got finished. So for my research and proposal, I will be sending this to Ms. Moore. She has my original plan. I made a Gantt chart giving an outline of my project timeline and when I wanted to complete it. So as my research for this project, I not only used some online resources like the United States Citizenship Services website, but I also sat in at Adult Education and their classes that pertain to this. So I went to their citizenship class, which is very civics based, and they spent the class going through a lot of the questions and topics that they needed to be aware of for their testing. And in that class, they also talk about filling out the forms and things like that that are necessary for them to apply. And then I also visited 3 ESL classes. They have a beginner's ESL, intermediate, and advanced, all of which kind of go over slightly different topics in ESL and learning English. And it was really interesting to see the difference between the students and what they were learning. So I will show you my website in a few minutes, but this is the outline of what I covered in my website. I just had a homepage that gave a brief overview of what the website was about and about what the website was for, and all of my work cited for the website because I did use a lot of outside resources to get some information. I also went over civics, the ESL, and the English part of the exam. So those are kind of like the 3 things that you really need to focus on studying wise for the citizenship exam. I have a section on interviews and paperwork that discusses how the interview process works and how filling out the N400 form works. And then I have 2 other tabs. One talks about how to obtain your citizenship and just gives a summary of the whole process. And then the last tab talks about voting. So once you're a citizen, how important it is to vote and how you can register so that you can make a difference in your community. So now I'm going to take you to my website. Hi, so I am going to do just a quick overview of the different parts of my website and show you guys what it looks like. So right now the page that you see is my home screen, and the home screen just gives a little blurb about what my website is about, and it provides links to the three main reasons that a person might be using this website, which is 1, to learn civics, 2, to learn English, or 3, to learn about the citizenship process as a whole. So then, the next page I have is the About page. So this just gives a little overview of why I created the project, who it is for, and it even gives my contact info. So if anybody who's using the website has any struggles, they can feel free to contact me. Also under the About section is all of the sources that I used for my website, and where I got some of the video content and things like that that I feature on the website. Then we have civics. So this is just the civics homepage, and it gives a brief description of what this portion of the website does, and it is split into 3 different sections. There is the civics video, there's the practice questions, and the study help. So let's visit the civics video. So this civics video goes over all 100 questions that you have to know, and you'll be asked 6 of them on your citizenship exam. And it goes over all the questions, and you can practice using the video. So that's why I chose to highlight that particular video. Then there's also a practice questions page where you can click either of these buttons and get to the civics questions that you're going to need to learn, so that you can have a printout of them and look at everything you're going to have to learn for your citizenship test. And then the third part of this section is just study help. And this breaks down some ways that you can improve your studying and your focus during your studying, so that you can have the best results possible with your time. The next section is ESL, which is English as a Second Language. And this is split into the 3 sections that Wallingford Adult Ed does theirs in, which is Advanced, Intermediate, and Beginners. And they all cover slightly different topics. So let's visit Advanced first. So Advanced ESL, I sat in class and a lot of the students were fluent in English, and they're really working on grammar concepts for the purposes of writing in English and like the inflection of what they're like saying. So they were working on how commas work and how commas can help break up a sentence, punctuation and how to use that, and different like sentence structures. So they were also talking about the parts of speech and things like comparisons and figurative language, which are more advanced grammar concepts in English. So that's why I chose to put those on the Advanced ESL page. Then there's the Intermediate ESL. Intermediate ESL was more focused on like real world applications of their English knowledge and like building vocabulary. So they were looking at filling out forms and letters, so I provided some information on filling out a letter and writing a letter, food vocabulary for the purposes of shopping, and then some other conversational day-to-day vocab for either having conversations or referring to things in your life, so that they can grow their vocabulary. And then Beginners ESL was focused on some more basic concepts like learning pronunciations, the alphabet, learning how to write and say the date in English, things like the seasons, and then very beginner's conversation like greetings, and asking simple questions so that you can begin to have some basic back and forths. So that's what I included on the Beginners ESL page. The next part is goes over the English part of the citizenship test, and there's 3 parts for this. There's the speaking section, which during your interview, you're kind of evaluated on how you speak to the officer that is interviewing you, and you have to go through your N400 form, which is your application to become a citizen. And then for the writing section and the reading section, you have to learn some vocabulary for sentences that you'll either have to write or read aloud. And I provided this link here, which will bring you to the reading test study materials, which is just the vocab list of what words you need to be familiar with. A lot of the sentences actually have to do with history. And then there's also a video below that goes through all of the different vocab you're going to need and allows you to kind of practice on your own the reading and writing skills that you're going to need. So then the next section is interviews and paperwork. So here it's just split into the form info and some videos of mock interviews. So let's visit form info first. So this link right here brings you to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services website. And here you can find a PDF of the N400 form, which is the form that most people have to fill out to get their citizenship. It also has the links to some other forms for people with exceptions, like having served in the military and things like that, who have a slightly different form. And from that link, they can print it off and begin to fill out their application. And then here is the videos of mock interviews. So from sitting in on classes and reading about this topic, I learned that a lot of people get nervous about the interview because they can really ask you anything, and it's a very hard thing to prepare for. There's no vocab list for it. So I provided some links to videos of simulated interviews so that people can kind of see what questions they might be asked and hopefully, bring their nerves down for that day. So here's the link to the United States government's simulated interview on their website. And then here's some other videos that I've provided of different people doing fake interviews. This one you can even, the simulated interview, you can even pause the video. There's time to answer back and see what you would say and help practice for that day. Then the citizenship process information. So this is just a really broad overview of the steps of becoming a United States citizen. Obviously, it doesn't look the same for every single person because there's a bunch of exceptions and different rules for different people, depending on how long they've been in the United States, if they've been in the military, they committed crimes, things like that. But this is just a direct overview of all the steps. Step 1 is figuring out if you're even eligible, and there's a bunch of different requirements. Step 2 is filling out the N400 form and giving all of your information on that application. And they may also take some biometrics. You might have to get some sort of exam from a doctor. Step 3 is to study and make sure that you're prepared for the day of your test and your interview. And that is, of course, the step that my website is trying to help with and make easier. And then step 4 is to take your test and do your interview. And when you turn in your form and you apply, they will give you interview dates that you can choose from, and you can always reschedule. But once you complete that, if you pass, you can go on and get sworn in as a citizen. They have ceremonies that you can go to. And if you don't pass, you can always interview again. So this is just a very brief overview and generalization of all the steps. And then the last tab is about voting. So this is directed for people who went through their process and have become citizens and might be interested in becoming a registered voter. So this is the first part, which is just a little blurb about why voting is so important, and hopefully will encourage them to have an impact on their community and become a registered voter and get to have a say in what happens in our country. And then the second part is just a quick how to register to vote. This link will bring you to the U.S. government's website where you can go through voter registration online. And then below I also have a list of places that a person reading this might be able to go to get some help on registering to vote if they have any questions or anything like that. So that is my website, and thank you for watching. So now that you have seen my final product, I just wanted to talk about the last steps of my project. And the original plan of this project was to hand it over to Wallingford Adult Ed and Scouts so they can use the link for their students. Especially now when classes aren't happening and big gatherings aren't happening, it will be really helpful for the students to have this online resource to use at home. So I will be handing it over to them.